have in my hands here 4 of the best distance irons currently on the market. So I have the TaylorMade M CGB, the Titleist AP1, the Cobra King F8 and the PING G400. And what we wanted to do was put all 4 of these irons up against each other, find out which one was the longest, but also look at some of the other performance attributes. How do they look? How do they feel? Also take a look at flight, accuracy, forgiveness, all of those things to give you a steer on which one might be right for your game. Now, we did the test yesterday at the Foresight Sports headquarters using a GC Quad launch monitor, using premium balls just to get us the data. And then we came over here to West Hill Golf Club where we tested the golf clubs in a real world environment out here on the range, out on the golf course as well, just to see how they all performed. Let's take a look at the results. In terms of looks, the one thing that you'll notice is the TaylorMade has the thickest top line of the 4 irons. And I think the Cobra is probably the most compact, certainly in terms of the distance between the heel and the toe. It's the most compact of the 4. For me, the 2 irons that I really like the look of were the PING G400 and the Titleist AP1. I think they strike a really good balance. They are confidence inspiring. The top lines are fairly thick, but they're not too thick. They don't feel too chunky, too cumbersome. They also have a really good amount of distance between the heel and toe, so you feel like there's a good amount of surface area to hit. If you are somebody that strikes the ball regularly out the toe, looking down on a little bit more club face might well inspire a bit more confidence. So which of these 2 irons would I go for? Well, I think sat behind the ball, probably go for the G400. Really like the matte finish of this one. I think the AP1 possibly has a better shelf appeal. I certainly think the longer irons in the AP1, the hollow construct 4 iron of that particular club, looks absolutely fantastic. So it would be one of these, it would be a toss up between them, but I think just sat behind the ball, probably just prefer the G400. So before I tell you which one was the longest of the 4 irons for me, just a quick word on the loft. So the Cobra and the TaylorMade were half a degree stronger than the Titleist and the PING. And having said that, there was a clear winner, and it was the Cobra King F8. It's an absolute rocket ship, this iron. I hit this an average carry yardage of 190 yards with a 7 iron. I think it's fair to say this is probably the longest 7 iron I think I've ever hit in my life. I hit one with it that went, I think it carried 202 yards, and it was pretty consistent up at those yardages. It really is a very impressive iron. Now, one small word of warning for anyone who's thinking, okay, immediately that's the iron for me. If you are thinking about investing, make sure you get a good fitting, okay, because it's relatively speaking, it's a little bit lower spinning and it's a little bit lower launching. Now, those things are fine, but you will need to make sure that you get exactly the right spec for your game to make sure that the launch conditions are right for you. And if you can get those elements right, you might well just find an iron that goes further than anything you've hit before. So the next section we've called performance, and it really encompasses all of those other elements that are so important when it comes to iron play. So how consistent were the distances, how accurate was it, what was the launch and flight like, those things. And this is actually where I suffered a little bit with the Cobra iron. The difference between my longest and shortest hit with the Cobra iron, I think, was 11 yards, which is actually quite a bit with a 7 iron. You don't want to get yourself into a position where you hit one flush out the middle and it goes flying over the back of the green and into a bush. So having those differences between longest and shortest hit as tight as possible is really important. Now, I was really impressed with the TaylorMade on that front. It is an iron that goes a long way. I think my average hit was 190 yards carried, but there was only 4 yards difference between my longest and shortest hit. Having said that, it probably wasn't the most accurate for me, and that's why I'm holding in my hands the PING G400 and the Titleist AP1. These 2 offer a really nice blend of all of the different performance attributes that you're looking for. Crucially, they're both easy to launch. That's partly because they are half a degree more lofted than the other 2 irons, but they're easier to launch, easier to get up in the air, and the different distances that you get between your best and your worst hit, there's not a vast gap there. And that's something that it doesn't matter whether you're just starting out or you've been playing golf for years. You need to make sure that your distances are as tightly dispersed as possible. And I found that's what I was getting with both of these irons, alongside a really great launch and a really great flight. So we're looking at the recommended retail price per club for each of these to give you an idea of where they all sit. So the Cobra is £107, The PING is 110, the Titleist is 115, and the TaylorMade is 120. So there, I mean, £13 difference per club between the Cobra and the TaylorMade, I'd say is quite significant. I have to say that the performance on offer that you get from this golf club, the Cobra, at £107 per club is very, very good indeed. It's very good across the board. All of the golf clubs perform well, but in terms of value, I think you get an awful lot for your money with Cobra. Okay, so before I tell you which one I would put into my bag, just a quick word on how all 4 irons felt through impact, because it's not an area that we've spoken about yet. I was really impressed by how they all felt. They were very, very solid indeed. Certainly when I started out on this test, I wasn't expecting an awful lot on that front. I wasn't expecting them to feel as good as they all did. If you're somebody that maybe has shied away from using a bigger iron because you're worried about how it would feel, I'd say now's the time to go out there, now's the time to test them, and preferably test them on the grass, because the sound and the feel through impact across the board, didn't matter which iron I was using, even the TaylorMade, which is a little bit chunkier in the top line, it felt absolutely fantastic, as they all did, and was one of the really standout elements to this test for me. So in terms of which one I'd put into my bag, it has to be the Cobra. I mean, this is a real rocket ship. It is a distance iron, make no bones about it. It went so far. I've never hit a 7 iron as far as I hit this one. And it's a real testament to the work the Cobra engineers have done on the internal workings of this club head, because it is a 7 iron. It's a 7 iron in terms of the shaft length. Yes, it's a strong loft, but I hit a couple that carried over 200 yards, which is absolutely incredible really for me for a 7 iron. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more confidence inspiring at address, maybe the TaylorMade might be right for you. Alternatively, if you want something that's easier to launch and that has a little bit more surface area to look down on, the Titleist or the PING are great to go for. So it doesn't matter which brand you go for, you will find extra performance. If it was me, I think it would be the Cobra F8.